Hello everyone, this is Shubhendu. I'm back with podcast on Ask the Lawyer. Today we would be talking about a big diplomatic achievement of Modi government. It is also a sign of the large-heartedness of India and Prime Minister Modi that he has displayed to the world. We would be talking about the whole issue surrounding the supply of hydroxychloroquine to the United States and other countries in the world. For those who want to understand the chronology, let us go date by date. On the 5th of April, President Trump requested Prime Minister Modi to release the United States order of hydroxychloroquine stockpile for the United States. So this was on the 5th of April. On the 6th, India allowed the export of hydroxychloroquine to the United States and making an exception to its earlier ban on export to keep supplies for themselves. So this was followed by the request made by President Trump to Prime Minister Modi to release the stocks for United States that India had for hydroxychloroquine, and that India decided to release on 6th after the request made by President Trump. So this decision was taken after President Trump of the United States and Prime Minister Modi had on the 5th of April. Now, one of the most remarkable things that we have to see here is that this was not normal diplomatic conversation between two countries or diplomatic thing between two countries wherein a president of the country requests for release of certain drugs and the Indian Prime Minister agrees to it. This apparently came with certain conditions. The conditions was not where India had to oblige for something. Rather, India was in a position where it could put conditions. Officially, I don't know what the conditions were, but if you look at the pharma industry, you would realize that something indeed took place. Some of the biggest exporters of medicines from India, these companies actually got US FDA, United States Food and Drug Administration, approval for the drugs that they are making. Earlier, these drugs were not allowed by US FDA to be exported into America. However, on the 9th of April, Aurobindo Pharma, a Hyderabad-based company, which is a very reputed pharma manufacturer, announced that it had got a final approval from US FDA to manufacture and market fluoxetine tablets. Now, fluoxetine is an antidepressant drug which is widely popular in the United States. It is one of the most consumed psychotropic drugs taken under medical advice in the United States. So, Aurobindo Pharma received the US FDA approval for manufacturing, marketing fluoxetine tablets in the United States. Earlier, the Aurobindo Pharma did not have this approval. This approval came sometimes between 5th and maybe 9th, because this press release of Aurobindo Pharma is from the 9th of April. Similarly, Cipla, one of the largest drug manufacturer in the country, got final approval for the generic version of Proventil. It's an inhalation aerosol for asthmatic patients to be manufactured and supplied in the United States. So Cipla, again, one of the largest companies, getting final approval for supplying one of the key drugs that it manufactures to the United States, which was earlier not allowed by the US FDA. So US FDA also allowed for one of the largest companies in India to supply these medicines in the United States. Similarly, there's another company called Granules India Limited, which is again into formulations and manufacturing of pharmaceuticals. That got its approval for a large number of medicines, including butalbital and acetaminophen and caffeine capsules to be manufactured and supplied in the United States. Again, these medicines have a large market in the United States, and all the three Indian companies got the US FDA final approval for manufacturing and marketing supply of these medicines in the United States. So all these things are happening. So all these three press releases are from the 9th of April. So let us again go back. 5th of April, President Trump calls up the Prime Minister Modi, requests for the release of hydroxychloroquine tablets. 6th of April, India allows for the limited supply of the hydroxychloroquine to the United States. By 9th of April, 3 of the companies from India get final approval from the US FDA to manufacture and supply their drugs in the United States. This is, I'm not talking about the diplomacy, but to me, this seems like a huge win for the business community in India, especially the pharmaceutical industry, which were earlier prohibited from supplying certain drugs in the United States, but have now been allowed to sell their drugs, manufacture and sell their drugs. Huge thing for the pharmaceutical industry and the company. This is reflected from the way the share prices of these companies have increased post the 9th of April. Coming back to another big pharma company, which is Ipca Labs. Ipca Labs is a Mumbai-based company which has a very big capacity of manufacturing hydroxychloroquine, which is currently the drug which is being prescribed for as a preliminary drug for COVID-19, protection from COVID-19 to the healthcare workers. Ipca Labs was not approved by the US FDA to supply the drug to the United States. All of a sudden, Ipca Drugs has been allowed by the US FDA to send these drugs to the United States. Again, this is a huge win for the business community in India. You would remember that on the 8th of April, Donald Trump, the US president, tweeted this, that extraordinary times require even closer cooperation between friends. Thank you, India and the Indian people, for the decision on HCQ. Will not be forgotten. Thank you, Prime Minister Modi, for your strong leadership in helping not just India, but humanity in this fight. This comes as a great win for Prime Minister Modi and his diplomatic prowess, wherein he did not just project India as superior country in terms of supplying humanitarian aid and medicines to the world to fight corona, but at the same time took care of the Indian business interests, whereby big Indian pharma companies got hugely benefited because of the supply of these drugs. Similarly, various countries, including Israel and Brazil, had the same approach towards India. In fact, the Brazilian head of the state, Bolsonaro, had to invoke Hanuman in how Lord Hanuman brought Sanjeevani Booty, and that was a boon for curing Lakshman. Similarly, he compares Prime Minister Modi as Hanuman, who would send medicines which would cure people in Brazil. India has also been planning to send medicines to Mauritius, Seychelles, Bahrain, Israel, and many other neighboring countries like Bangladesh and other countries, Sri Lanka. So, to me, this whole thing seems a very big win for not just Indian pharma companies, for the Indian businesses, but also it raises the stature of India and the Indian government in the whole world, where it comes across as someone who is taking a lead in fight against corona, and at the same time also helping the other countries, or the big countries and small countries in the world in their fight. So that is all for today. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed this.